Hello, I'm Death's Arrow, and welcome to episode 17 of What I'm Thinking. In this episode, I will look at the M46 Patton and how this American medium tank fares as the successor to the M26 Pershing. From a historical perspective, the M46 Patton was a modernization of the M26 Pershing. At the close of World War II, the latest standard American tank was the M26 Pershing. While the Pershing was the final production tank of the war, it was already outdated and had significant deficiencies, the greatest of which was the low horsepower and poor reliability of its engine. At 500 horsepower, the Ford GAF engine, which was more than adequate for the 35-ton M4 Sherman, was inadequate for the 45-ton M26 Pershing. However, due to having 2,000 Pershings in inventory and a significantly reduced development budget in the post-war era, it was decided that a modernization program for the Pershing would be the most sensible option. The primary improvement to the Pershing was the inclusion of a new air-cooled V12 gasoline engine. The development of the new engine by the Continental Motors Corporation was started back in July of 1943 by the Wartime Tank Engine Committee. Conceived as the ideal tank engine, the AV1790-5 version of this motor that was included in the production M46 produced 810 horsepower. Combined with a new General Motors CD850-1 cross-drive transmission, the power plant issues of the Pershing were solved. The new power plant and transmission required modifications to the top and rear of the Pershing's tank hull. Other modernizations included modifications to the 90mm gun M3 with the addition of a bore evacuator and adding a M83 telescope to the fire control system. Also, the suspension system was modified to include a track tension idler to maintain track tension between the road wheels and the sprocket on each track to reduce track throwing during turns and when maneuvering over rough terrain. Other armament options were also considered, including a modified version of the Navy's 3-inch 70 caliber anti-aircraft gun. Alternate armaments were rejected due to the revised project specifications at a meeting between the Ordnance Department and the Army Field Forces in the spring of 1948. 10 modernized Pershings designated as the T-40 were authorized for construction in 1948, with a model arriving at the Aberdeen testing grounds in August 1949. 9 of the 10 T-40s produced were used at various testing programs at Aberdeen, Fort Knox, and Detroit Arsenal. Upon completion of testing, the modernized Pershing was standardized as the M46 and named after General George S. Patton, Jr. The first production run, ordered in late 1949, consisted of 800 tanks, and it was estimated that 1,215 additional Pershings were available for conversion in 1950. Like the T-40, the M46 retained the turret and forward hull structure of the M26 and was armed with the 90mm gun M3A1. The M46 could be identified from the Pershing by the small track tension idlers and the engine mufflers on each rear fender. With the outbreak of the Korean War in June of 1950, tank production plans drastically changed. Many Pershings were rushed to Korea rather than undergo conversion to the M46. Production of the M46 was not considered desirable due to many features of the tank being considered obsolete. However, the immediate need for new modernized armor did not allow time to develop a completely new tank design, and plans were laid to combine the proven hull of the M46 with a new turret and armament from the experimental T-42. By the end of 1950, the M46 Patton began to arrive in Korea. The M46's high power-to-weight ratio, compared to the Pershing, was a welcome improvement due to the mountainous terrain. M46s continued to be shipped to Korea and allowed for remaining Pershings to be withdrawn in 1951. Previous mention of the proposal to combine the proven hull of the M46 with a new turret and armament from the experimental T-42 is intentional. This project ultimately led to the M47 Patton. In World of Tanks, the M46 Patton with the upgraded turret is the M47 Patton. The M47 was designed in late 1950, even though the tank hadn't yet been standardized. Design characteristics for the tank were developed in early 1951. The tank would retain the basic M46 hull with modifications to the front hull slope to increase protection, and the turret ring diameter increased to accept the T-42 turret. The new turret featured a needle nose design which improved armor protection of the turret. Its main gun would be the S36 90mm gun with an M12 optical rangefinder. Production commenced in June of 1951, but delays in shipment of the M12 rangefinder, along with other problems due to the rushed production, extended the testing period of the tank. The first M47s were not fielded until the summer of 1952, and the tank was only produced until 1953. The M47 was fielded in Korea starting in late 1952, but were soon replaced by the M48 and M103. Ultimately, the M46 and M47 were interim tank designs to replace the outdated M4 Sherman and M26 Pershing to bridge the gap until more modern tank designs could be completed, like the M48 and M103. In World of Tanks, the M46 Patton builds upon the play style of the T-20 and M26 Pershing. With excellent gun depression like its predecessors, the M46 excels at hull-down tactics. The tank also has particularly good view range, and at one time it was an effective passive scout for clan wars. Combined with good mobility, the M46 can get to key areas on the battlefield, spot enemy targets at range, and put holes in them. The 105mm gun T5E1M2, which is the top gun for the M46, is an effective weapon, but it does have accuracy issues at times. At long ranges, it's impossible to aim for weak spots, and the rounds will go off target on occasion. As long as you stay hidden, though, missing a few shots isn't a big deal. I don't recommend brawling in the M46 as its hull is soft and won't bounce many shots, although circling lone heavies is always a viable option. The tank is also fairly easy to track, which can make escaping difficult. It also should be noted that the gun's mantlet is much smaller on the M46 when compared to the Pershing. This takes away the ability to take return fire in a hull down position. While I'm free to admit that I'm not the best M46 driver, I've learned a lot about this tank and how to properly play it. The best use of the M46 is to stay hidden at range and snipe the enemy. If you get spotted, you should relocate immediately before Artie can hone in on your position. Abuse terrain whenever possible to get pop-up shots off. Gun depression allows you to expose less of your tank for a shorter period of time in comparison to its peers, which have little to no gun depression. This will allow you to distract and harass the enemy, which will lead to frustration and ultimately mistakes on their part. One other note, the M46 sees a lot of Tier 10 battles. More than 50% of its matches will be against Tier 10s. Playing a more patient style will be to your advantage in these matches. If this is your first Tier 9 tank, this is a good time to start studying Tier 10 tank weak spots, as you need to learn how to damage Tier 10s to have any effect on the outcome of the match. For equipment on this tank, my current setup has vents to improve all crew skills, a rammer to decrease reload times, and a vertical stabilizer to improve aim time. Based on my new line of thinking with this tank, replacing the rammer with coated optics is a better option. The M46 has excellent view range at 410 meters. Adding coated optics increases the view range to 451 meters. This can't be overlooked if you plan to play a sniper type role and avoid brawling. For crew skills, I started this crew with repair back when I had the T20, although I think that camo may be a much more valuable skill for this tank, as staying hidden at range is more useful. Sixth Sense is a must for me these days, and I respect the commander once you reach the second skill. Other valuable skills include Snapshot, Smooth Ride, Situational Awareness, Recon, and Off-Road Driving. It should also be noted that while I'm not carrying any premium ammo and quite a bit of HE in the screenshot, I recommend carrying 10 premium rounds and cutting down the amount of HE to 6 rounds or less. But don't remove all of your HE rounds. A few for emergencies like cap resets will come in handy once in a while. The first replay that I'll be looking at is a solo battle on Himmelsdorf from November 14th, 2012. Please note that this is an 8.1 patch battle. Before starting the replay, I wanted to mention that based on some viewer feedback, this episode will have a new feature during the replays. In an effort to bring back more of the tactical macro management commentary that I used earlier in the series, there will be pause points in the battle so that I can explain what's going on in the match and why I'm making certain decisions. Any feedback on this new feature would be appreciated. As noted at the top of the loading screen, this is an encounter battle. Reviewing tank composition for this battle reveals the following. This is a Tier 10 battle with 5 Tier 10s on my team and 6 on the enemy team. My team has 6 Tier 9s while the enemy team has 4. Both teams have 2 Tier 8s. My team has 2 arty pieces while the enemy team has 3. Our team has a bit of a mobility advantage with 5 mediums and a light compared to only 2 mediums on the enemy team. I don't recognize anyone in this battle. As this is an encounter battle, my plan is to take the hill, as this is a key point on this map outside of the capture point. The team holding this location has a big advantage.
Time to roll out.
Begin my ascent up the hill. A quick rant. As I watch our Lorraine attempt to push a T-95 up the hill, which by the way is futile, the T-95 is too heavy to gain any advantage from a Lorraine, there are certain players who for whatever reason think that slower tanks should get pushed up hills. The problem is especially bad at lower tiers when they slam into the back of the tank they're trying to push and take damage in the process. This finds the tank that you're trying to push. Just do us all a favor and stop doing it. I've reached the top of the hill. I'm moving behind the castle. I've noticed almost immediately that the only enemy tank spotted on the hill is a T-54, and all of the enemy's TDs are currently on the 8 column based on both over-target markers and confirmed by the minimap. This frees me up to spot and snipe targets of opportunity. If the enemy pushes around the castle, I'll have some warning due to proxy spotting. If you're unfamiliar with proxy spotting, short for proximity spotting, this is what happens when any tank gets within 50 meters and is automatically spotted. This is supposed to represent a tank crew knowing that another tank is nearby based on noise. Enemy has a strong push going on down the 8 line. I've got rear flanks on this IS-7, so I'm going to take some shots of opportunity here. And I hit him in the rear. Still have him lined up. Takes another hit in the flank. I don't think he knows I'm there. Finally dives into cover. I have not been spotted yet, which is a blessing at the moment. Get another flank on the IS-7. I finally been spotted. I bounce a shot. The T-54 has been proxy spotted as he attempts to round the castle. While I've been taking fire from below, I always keep half an eye on the minimap. Over-focusing on sniping can lead to taking a lot of unnecessary damage. It should also be noted that the only other enemy tank that's come to the hill is their IS-4. We trade blows. Backing up. There's another heavy spot on the other side of the hill, but the enemy really has not contested the hill. I get another hit on the T-54. I've got support IS-8 Lorraine on this side as well. Take splash damage from Artie and lose a track. Line up the E-50M and I miss. T-54 is down to 10 hit points. I've made a mistake here. I've jumped in front of our IS-8 who had an easy kill on the T-54. I could have taken a round in the back in the process. Be very careful when cutting in front of friendly tanks. I go to ram him and our IS-8 knocks him down for the kill. With only the IS-4 nearby, I briefly consider following our team down the hill, but the correct choice, which I ultimately make, is to stay on the hill and continue sniping at targets of opportunity. This allows me to continue doing what the M46 does best, rather than put myself in a brawling situation. Enemy has an E-50M in the open. Line them up, but I miss. Their IS-7 is also in the open. The enemy is giving me really easy targets to shoot at here.
Looks like that one went right through.
I get a hit on the E-50M. Get some flanks on this IS-7 now. I miss my shot. Trying to line up the E-50 again, but he dives into cover. And he's in the open again. I'm going to line him up. Miss a shot. Gun's being a little temperamental here. See a back shot on Artie. I'm trying to knock down the Artie. With the enemy moving beyond the square, I now need to relocate to find new targets. As noted on the mini-map, the enemy has pushed very heavily into the southern portion of the map. Decide to swing around the back side of that T-95 to not get in his line of sight. I've seen plenty of players do this where they jump in front of another tank's gun and take friendly fire. Still trying to see if I can get some spots on these guys, but they're way behind buildings and they're not going to have any opportunities. Continuing to reposition. Thought I might have a flank on that Tiger II for a second, but now I'm moving to get to better ground for shots. Right now the score's tied 7-7. Got a little scuffle going on at G7, which I'm going to provide some support for from the hill over here. This location, while open to return fire, works well if the enemy is distracted. As noted on the mini-map, the enemy has a number of tanks near cap and will likely start capping soon.
Looks like that one went right
He's not
through.
paying any attention to me. Get a flank hit.
That's gotta hurt.
Get another hit. And our E-50M knocks down their E-50M. I'm now coming off the hill. Based on what I'm seeing on the minimap, the enemy has at least 3 tanks in the 2 column near the cap. The enemy has started capping the base. As a fast medium, there will be no issues for me to get over to defend cap. Based on what I see on the minimap, we have coverage to the north, so I will go to the south end and attack the cappers from J2, which should give me flanking shots on the cappers. Looks like their entire team is on the cap right now. We currently have a 2-tank lead. Not particularly worried about getting capped out. Plenty of time to get over there. And our team is getting shots to them and has reset the cap slightly. It'll knock 10 points off. Continue to move. I'm getting into position here. All of the capping enemies are facing the other direction, which makes easy targets for me. Knock him down. The enemy still has all 4 tanks on cap, but I have rears on every single one of them. Hit the E4 in the back. Trying to see who else I might be able to hit. End up knocking the E4 down. IS-3, get another rear shot. He's starting to turn around. He notices that I'm behind him finally. But I punched through his front armor for the kill. Moving up on the E4 and the IS-7 that are still on cap. Knock down the E4. Just an IS-7 remaining. And they knock him down for the win. Looking at the after action screens, I destroyed 5 tanks, hit 16 of 21 shots for 4,752 points of damage, and earned 1,909 experience before the double. I earned a D. Langlades medal for destroying 4 capping enemies and an ace tanker badge. Overall, the enemy's decision to only send a token force to the hill was their undoing. The hill is the key tactical position on Himmelsdorf in the encounter game mode. Rushing straight for cap only works in low tier battles or against a much slower enemy team. With a significant medium advantage, getting to cap from the hill wasn't going to be an issue. Once we took the hill, I assessed the situation and noticed a number of enemies in the open. Sniping from the hill was my best option. The enemy put themselves in a bad position which I took full advantage of. Once the enemy started capping, my next move was clear. I needed to defend cap. After assessing the minimap and seeing where our tanks were, I knew that going back through our spawn and to the south would give me flanking opportunities on the cappers, which I got in spades. I had rear shots at all the capping enemies and we quickly mopped them up for the win. The second replay that we'll be looking at is a platoon battle on Serene Coast from November 22nd, 2012. I am platoon with Jovial Madness in his AMX-13F3. Please note that this is an 8.1 patch battle. As noted at the top of the loading screen, this is a standard battle. Reviewing tank composition for this battle reveals the following. This is a tier 10 battle with 2 tier 10s per side. My team has an additional tier 9 while the enemy's team has a tier 5 scout. Both teams have 5 arty pieces, with both teams having 2 tier 8s and 2 tier 7s. The enemy team also has a tier 6. We have Jovial's tier 5. I don't recognize anyone in this battle. This replay was specifically chosen due to the number of artillery units in the match. Serene Coast generally plays in 2 phases. Phase 1 is the early scout rush part of the battle where fast tanks try to get early spots before the enemy is set up to defend. Phase 2 is the stalemate phase. Each team gets entrenched in defensible positions and waits for the other side to make mistakes. From my experience on this map, usually the best move for mediums are to go to somewhere in the 1 through 4 column along the hill and utilize soft cover to protect yourself, especially with all the arty in this match. The typical southern push that you'll see is usually the 1 column over the hill. They either utilize the hill for cover and sniping opportunities. You'll occasionally see pushes down and over to the B1 area. You want to be in position to stop those pushes. Once the enemy gets to B1, they have really good spotting lanes and can occasionally pick up arty from that location. We have a scout, a 2801, pushing up the 5 column. Nothing I can do about that right now, but I took a snapshot anyways. We have an E50 in the middle. I'm continuing to push up the hill, which isn't particularly smart. Take a blind fire on the E50. I've been spotted. I take a hit from the T62A. I've pushed up the hill too far. The E50 at E4 is spotting me for enemies on the hill. There's no hard cover up here for arty protection. I need to get out of here and get back to safer territory. Trying to see if I can respot those enemies for my team, but I am backing down. I think I've finally seen the error of my way as I turn around. I'm going to head back down the hill. I'm going to pick up a spot that I found over here. This is a much better location. I have soft cover in front of me and can quickly back into hard cover when spotted. I'll be relying heavily on 6th Sense to let me know when to drop back into hard cover.
That's gotta hurt.
E50 gets knocked down. The enemy has an E75 on the hill. Kind of a surprise. The E75 is a bit slow to go in that direction. We also have an M46 at C1. He knocked down our Lorraine. Not entirely thrilled with this tank distribution. We only have 3 tanks on this side, a bunch of guys bottled up in the middle, but there is a lot of artillery in this match. One thing I hadn't noted from earlier is our T-92 got knocked down in the scout run. T-110 is moving up. Now this is the stalemate phase of the Serene Coast map. You saw the early rush. Now we're kind of sitting, waiting to see who's going to make the push and who's going to do what. Right now on my side, I've seen an M46, E75, T62A. Keeping an eye on the M46 right now. There's also a TD at G5. Our Yag Tiger gets knocked down by Artie, but Jovial gets a counter battery, knocks down their M4043. Yag Tiger is on the hill. That means the T30 was a G6. I get a hit on the Yag Tiger. You can see here why my push up the hill earlier was a mistake. The enemy had an E75, Yag Tiger, and a T62A up there. Patience is key here. Need to keep whittling them down. Continuing to be patient here. It's critical. It's not going to be possible for me to push forward. I have to stay here, keep the enemy honest, try to spot them, and hope we can knock them down. We're now down 2 tanks. We've lost our T1E5, E75, Yag Tiger, Lorraine, and T92. Enemy has lost E50, M4043, and a VK2801. ST1 spotted in the middle. Although I'm paying attention to the other side. Line up the ST1 and bounce. It's unfortunate that I'm not carrying any premium rounds on this tank at this time. Would have come in handy against this ST1. Get a tracking hit. Blind fire. Don't know what I did. Take another blind shot, figuring he was tracked so I could do some damage. Enemy Artie has knocked down our ST1. We're now down 3 tanks. Still maintaining my patience. Gonna let the enemy make mistakes here. T62A has now moved off the hill. He is over on the other flank at F5. Get a bounce on the ST1. Still have one more shot. I bounce. Our 5120 knocks down the T62A. Still down 2 tanks. Haven't been spotted in a while, which is a good sign. Conqueror knocks down the ST1. The Conqueror is actually up at A2. Patton spotted. 2 Pattons spotted on the hill. I got flanks on them. I get a hit, no damage. The high health Patton is pushing. He's taking damage. I'm lining him up. Get a rear shot in there. He's down to 9 hit points. The other M46 was knocked down by our GWE. And then knock him down. We've stifled their push. We're down 1 tank now. E75 pushes down the hill and slides off. Doesn't take a lot of damage though. Probably broke a track. Yag Tiger pushing the hill. Hit, no damage. Our E50 moves in. E75 is knocked down by Artie. I don't have any shots on that Yag Tiger. He's in a depressed spot. IS-7 spotted at E4, already on top of the hill. I'm trying to line up that IS-7, get a flank hit. I'm worried about that push since we only have one tank on that flank. This is a key moment in the battle. With the E-75 and the Yag Tiger knocked out, the IS-7 and T-30 spotted on the east side of the train tracks, the route is clear to make an arty run. This is tactical awareness at its finest. Already knocks down the Lorraine 155-50. While taking the low road would offer a faster route to the enemy backfield, going up the hill will offer better spotting opportunities. And we lose our 5120 to the IS-7. We're in a little bit of trouble here. Here's the T-30. Object 261. Based on our discussion that I'm having in TeamSpeak currently in this battle, we decide that I should push hard, get into the enemy backfield. See if I can knock down some arty in the process. Come over the little rise in terrain. Got a T-92 spotted. He hits me, but he doesn't knock me down. Pretty significant damage too. I spin around behind him. Turret and hull traverse at the same time, and I get a hit. I'm behind the T-92. There's no way he's going to get his gun back on me. And knock him down. We currently have a 1-tank lead. Enemies down to 2 heavies and 2 arty. We have myself and 4 arty. T-30 those out in the open. Arty's putting rounds on him. There's no need to engage the T-30 here. Just need to keep him lit and let the arty work him over. T-30's knocked down by the GWE. Push over the train tracks here. The only enemy that's unaccounted for is the M4043, and I'm going to try to go around the backside of the hill because that's where Jovial thinks he's been firing from. And the 4043 knocks down our GWE. Get hung up on the terrain there a little bit. I'm going to keep pushing forward though. Jovial insists that the arty is back in this corner somewhere. The IS-7 tries to cap our base and gets knocked down. I do not spot the M4043 and I make the call to go to cap. I go to cap to draw the enemies out of hiding. Arty has poor view range and I will spot them before they spot me. Begin capping. Jovial is pushing up and he spots the Object 261. Object is at half health, give or take. I'm continually moving around the cap in case the enemy tries to blind fire on the cap. I don't want to get hit by accident. Also trying to keep my eyes open, make sure that if the enemy M4043 does come back that I get shots on him. Jovial's keeping that 261 busy right now. Trying to keep the camera pointed on the action over there. A little tough with the mountain in the way and the way I'm moving around. And our Object 212 knocks down the 261. Just an M4043 left, which knocks down Jovial. Currently myself and an Object 212 against an M4043. He just fired. He'll probably be reloaded before I cap out the base, but he doesn't have any spots on me. And likely there's a terrain issue here as well. Which is why I'm hugged up against this hill here. The only way the enemy can likely get to me is through this little pass that I came up onto the cap in, and he's running out of time. And we cap out the enemy base for the win. Unfortunately, I don't have any after-action screen information on this battle. Overall, I knew before this battle started that Artie would have a significant impact on this match. Serene Coast usually has a protracted stalemate mid-match, even without Artie present, and with Artie, that stalemate lasts just that much longer. While I did make a poor tactical decision early on by pushing up the hill, I corrected my error once I noticed how much firepower the enemy had in the area. I corrected my mistake and moved to a location where I had soft cover with nearby hard cover in case I was spotted. 6th Sense came in handy more than once and let me know when to move to hard cover to avoid getting artied. Once the enemy's hill push was defeated and it was clear where the remaining enemy tanks were, I made a move to spot and take out enemy Artie. I then capped out the enemy base for the win, as trying to chase down the remaining Artie likely would have resulted in my destruction. Thank you for watching this episode of What I'm Thinking. Stay tuned for another episode soon. In the next episode, I will take a look at my favorite Tier 2 tanks and examine the concept of what some players have dubbed baby seal clubbing.
Ha ha ha.